Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Walters, and this is the Walters Wanderings Travel Podcast. With me today is Ray Snisky of ALG Group. He will explain what he does and how he does it. He'll also talk about travel trends for both the consumers out there as well as for the travel professionals like myself to let everyone know what's going on. And I promised him that we'll sneak in some golf questions because golf is a very important part of life, even though it is a four-letter word. Just to let you know that I do have a special. If you mention the podcast in the month of July and you book a trip with me, you will get $25 in a gift card to your favorite establishment, or you'll get $50 in future travel credit. So either way, you will win if you book with me in the month of July and mention the Walters Wanderings Travel Podcast. So Ray, first of all, thank you so much for being on board with us today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Scott.
No worries. Let's get started with, now, ALG stands for the Apple Leisure Group. Explain to the folks out there what the Apple Leisure Group does, what it is, and how consumers have been able to use the Apple Leisure Group and how travel professionals have as well.
Yeah, great question. So Apple Leisure Group is an organization that's comprised of various different business units. We have a hotel management company that now has over 100 hotels and in Mexico, Caribbean, and Spain throughout Europe. We have a vacation club at the hotels, UVC. We have Amstar, which is one of the largest DMCs in the world and the largest in Mexico and Caribbean. And then the area that I lead is ALG Vacations. And so that's the distribution arm for the company. And we sell products all around the world, but primarily focused on domestic U.S. and Mexico and Caribbean and Hawaii. It's really a great model in which we work collaboratively as an organization. The distribution helps drive some of the hotel expansion. We drive our business to Amstar. So it's really a vertically integrated company, and it's experienced a tremendous amount of success over the years.
That's very good. And some of the companies that are under the ALG umbrella are going to be Apple Vacations. We also have FunJet Vacations, Travel Impressions, Blue Sky Travel, even Universal Vacations is under the umbrella. And I think it's really important for the consumers to understand that when a travel advisor like me finds a vacation for a consumer, and it's under one of these brands, that the facilities that we're going to be sending you to are basically fully vetted. And, there might be an isolated thing that happens, and there may be a particular property that is undergoing some kind of issues that we may not know about. Both someone like Ray wouldn't even know, and I wouldn't even know. But I would say 98 to 99% of the time, places that we send clients to are fully vetted and certainly are going to meet or exceed client needs. I think that's really important to understand because there are a lot of properties out there. There's a lot of tour operators out there, and I think that's an important thing. Am I correct on that assessment?
No, you are absolutely correct in that. What we have is a very extensive supplier engagement team, and so particularly the hotels that we sell large volumes to, every one of those are inspected on an annual basis. Have great relationships with those hotels and are very, very coordinated and aligned on their progress on enhancements to the property or changes that they've done and investments and remodeling and those kinds of things. So, it's something that we help to build trust and confidence for companies like yourself to know that those products are products that we vetted before and have worked with closely to ensure they have the optimal experience for the customer.
That's great. Now let's talk about the consumer. What trends are you seeing, and what trends should we note for travel for the rest of 2021? We'll deal with that first, then we'll talk about 2022 afterwards. What are we looking for in 2021?
So there's obviously been a lot of change from 2020 going into 2021, and we saw a tremendous surge at the end of February with some pent-up demand, and we're still riding that wave. It's been over 90 days now, close to 120 days of really strong demand and high consumer confidence with the increased levels of vaccinations and the decreasing number of cases. The client's been able to see the execution go out fairly flawlessly with the resorts, and particularly in the Mexico and Caribbean region, which is a real focal point for us. The amount of effort that they made on ensuring the customer safety and having sanitation protocols has really been one of the inspiring moments of this whole pandemic, in that companies that had a lot of financial pressure because of the fall off in business really spared no expense to ensure the customer would be safe, and protocols were instilled to the point where, when they first announced in January that they were going to require a negative test to re-enter the country, and you had heard so much about 30 to 40% of the customers were asymptomatic, I was very, very concerned about our industry and concerned about our business. And I'm very proud to share with you that of our first 550,000 customers that have returned to the US, our positivity rate is 0.007 of 1%. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. If you would have told me that percentage, 6 months ago, I would have thought you were crazy. And I think it's really been a case of a number of things, but most importantly, that the suppliers have taken this immensely seriously and have invested in the protocols that avoided people getting sick. And it's really a fantastic outcome and one of the great wins of this year. But I think when you look at that pent-up demand, tremendous tight booking window, 55% of our business comes within 50 days, and that's very, very unusual for us. Generally, we're booking much, much further out than that. People are leaning towards higher end hotels where they want to have confidence in trusted brands that they will deliver the sanitation protocols and so forth. So that's been something that's been very clear. And I actually thought when people started to travel again that they would be rather conservative, and maybe they'd go to an all-inclusive and wouldn't want to venture outside of the hotel. They play it safe, and it's really been a complete 180. Customers are booking more excursions now than they did per unit prior to the pandemic. 75% of all of our bookings, 75% of our customers take an excursion now, which is a higher percentage than it was previous. And people are wanting to follow safety protocols, but they've been cooped up for a long time, and they want to get out and they want to experience things. And so it really has been, a pleasant surprise. And so I think through the rest of 2021, I think we're going to see some better normalization of operations, whether it be airlines or destinations and so forth. There's been some bumps along the way coming out of this pandemic. I think the surge really surprised, our whole industry. And there were issues with, staffing and things along those lines. Even for ourselves at ALG, we have hired 800 people in our contact center since February. And there were times we still couldn't keep up. And so I think that's really an industry issue. You're seeing a high degree of schedule changes and cancellations and things along those lines. So it's been a bumpy road. And, and kind of the mantra has been, let's all have patience as we kind of recover from this pandemic. There are issues where there's been so many different changes in protocols that there's some uncertainty by the customer. There's been, limitations on capacity for excursions in certain destinations, resulting to the point where someone may have had something confirmed only to find that inventory depleted. So there's been some bumps. I think we're working together as an industry to get past that, but that certainly has been, happening in the last 60 days or so. And so we're looking for some normalcy there. Inventory is tightening up. Airfares are rising to a very, very high degree. And unlike, many of us that have been doing this for a long time, generally some airline jumped out of the pack and started adding more capacity and helped to lower fares and so forth. And we haven't seen that yet. They've been very disciplined in having their fares be high. So, fares to Cancun for a long period of time, we're averaging over $1,000, which is much higher than it is normally. And so, a real focus is the customer booking further out. And I think the only time that the industry booking window ever changes is when people start to miss the things that they want. So the hotel they wanted was sold out, or the flights were really expensive and so forth. So I think you're going to see an elongating of the booking window, throughout the rest of the year. And, I think another great thing is the number of travel advisors that help support clients through this year. And I think there's really a renaissance in the value of a trusted travel advisor. We did some market research, and the number of people went from 74% that would be interested in a travel advisor to up over 93. And so, we're seeing that. I think, the model with the OTA is a little different. There were probably some challenges during that time period. And so having a trusted advisor who could help them through with their refunds and help them through with their rebookings and so forth has been invaluable. I also think that the advisor of today who's gone through this, and there isn't a group of people that have worked more tirelessly than the travel advisor during this whole thing, have really they're better at running their business now. They're better at understanding their business and knowing the tools they need to be able to get up-to-date information and content for their customers and so forth. So lots of moving parts, but no question about it, the pent-up demand has been tremendous. And even with some of the rising prices, it hasn't really slowed down demand, very much at all. But I think the challenge for the rest of the year is finding the places that you want to go to and making sure you book them early on to make sure that they're available. And then I think another thing for the consumer is a lot of other options are going to open up later in the year, whether it be cruises or whether it be Europe or things along those lines. So, we've seen this past year that primarily, and especially during the pandemic, it was Vegas domestically and it was Cancun internationally. Those are really the two staple destinations. And that's obviously continuing to change now. But there's still a number of Caribbean islands that haven't gotten back to, program. And I think that's something to look forward to as more destinations and more options start to open up.
I think that's all very important, very valuable information. I think before we start talking about 2022, let's talk about traveler expectations. You sort of hit upon it a little bit by saying there have been some bumps in the road. And I know that from my experience, I get an email every day about some change to somebody's booking, somebody's itinerary. And also the fact that airlines right now, they're kind of understaffed because they furloughed a lot of people during the pandemic. And in order to get, especially pilots and others, they have to be recertified. So there's a certain amount of time that takes. And so there have been a lot of cancellations. American Airlines, most notably, Southwest as well, for more domestic things, although Southwest does do a few things internationally. But I think we need to just sort of address not only the hotel that may not be available to a traveler, especially like a holiday week, Thanksgiving week, Christmas week. Those are really, really tight. Let me tell you, I've been booking a couple of people for Christmas week, and it's like, this is the best I've got. And I've looked through every single vendor partner that I know. So what should the traveler be looking for and understand even better if they're traveling sometime in 2021?
Yeah, I think it goes back to your point is try to book as early as possible. And when you know that you're looking for something, try to be flexible if you can. Obviously, you're not going to move holidays around, but if there's certain time periods that you want to go to a destination, you have some flexibility. I think that would be really valued right now because there are certain periods, as you said, have tightened up. And I think, do some research with your travel advisor on the things that you want to do to get those booked as well, because historically, a lot of customers like to wait until they get to the destination to plan excursions because they're not sure what day they want to do it or so forth, or see shows in Vegas, whatever have you. And I think that's the critical part right now is there are inventory caps on some of those excursions. And the sooner you can get them booked and have your itinerary squared away, the better off you are. Companies like ourselves, we offer gift cards. So you can buy a gift card, then you can still have the flexibility to put it on any excursion that you want. But you want to really do those things sooner rather than later because the choices are running slim. And I think there'll be some expansion of that. I think from a good news standpoint, I think that if we continue on the path that we're doing, I think it's likely at some point that the government will remove the negative test that's required to be able to return as vaccinations continue to climb and cases continue to drop. And I think that'll be another surge, for our industry, because I think there's still a number of customers that are sitting out on the sidelines right now saying, I don't really care if the hotel is going to comp me for, I can't afford to be stuck in another country for 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. So I think that's another pool of customers that will be available and come into the foray. So, and that's right. I think operations will normalize. You're right. This ramp up has been very difficult. There's a lot of sense that a number of eligible employment opportunities are held back because people like getting the unemployment package they're getting and the stimulus packages that they've gotten, and there's not that same drive to get back to work. So I think that coupled with just the surprise of the surge, no one really saw it coming, and it literally happened within days. And
within a week, the very last week of February to the beginning of March. All of a sudden, it's like the phone's ringing off the hook, the emails, the messages, they're just piling in. So 2022, what kind of travel trends are you looking for in 2022 from a consumer side?
Well, not to beat the dead horse with book in advance, but we're seeing that, where, a number of our products are up double digits for 2022. We run a charter program through a number of cities where we provide full plane or partial plane aircraft at great rates and values for customers. Those are up 25%, and many of those flights throughout this summer have been completely sold out. And I can tell you, it's been a long time since our charter flights have been completely sold out as they are now, but everything's running over 90%, and so forth. So I think it's, do your research with a travel advisor that you trust, get the information of where you want to go and try to get it booked as quickly as possible. And, but I do think that the more this surge continues and the more there's that pent up demand, I do think capacity will increase even further in 2022. So I would look for more options and flights to be made available, for our business. And I think that's something I think is going to help us all, because there is a rather finite amount of flights available.
No, that's a good point. There's no doubt about it. Now, I just want to pivot over to the travel advisor side. Obviously, from your end how ALG took an absolute bloodbath last year. Let's not kid ourselves. And for a travel advisor like me and all of my other travel advisor colleagues, we too took it on the chin and in the gut and everywhere else last year. There's been chatter, because I'm obviously social media savvy enough to know, some of my travel advisor colleagues were really, we need to have our confidence boosted in our vendor partners like ALG. And I guess right now, I'll give you a moment or two to go ahead and address what ALG is doing to help make things better for the travel advisors to avoid the 7.5-hour holds and unanswered emails and other things that have gone on that completely vex us and make us lose our hair. Although for me, my hair is not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And clearly your initial point, no one was missed in the struggles of 2020 and the pandemic. And so for our company, we always pride ourselves in our size and scale and so forth, and our ability to serve the customer. And really last year, we canceled over 1.1 million passengers. And so if you think about that for a second, that scale does work the other way. And so there were challenges and there were times where it was rather overwhelming. And so we worked real hard and tirelessly to get back on track. And I think that for us, there was certainly new ways we wanted to try and communicate, and we implemented some new technology on credit transfers and other types of things to help that process. And so through all that, we've really focused on, and I focused on really transformation and what did we need to do as a company differently. And I don't think we were prepared as well as we could have been for something like this. And clearly there's no playbook for something like this. So it's as if, I don't know that you'd ever be prepared, but the previous 3 or 4 years, ALG had been really aggressively growing, merged with Mark Travel, and really, when you're growing at that pace, a lot of the investments become more about revenue generation and growth and more brands and those kinds of things. And those things are definitely things that have helped the organization. But it wasn't the sexy thing to say, let's go restructure the accounting system and let's go look at ways we can be more efficient on providing refunds and those kinds of things. So I think it exposed some of our weaknesses and some of our kind of archaic ways we were structured and how we were handling business. So the great news is in 2021 right now, as I said, we've hired over 800 people since February in the contact center, made a number of technology investments to be more efficient, have really seen a surge in the business and have had great products and services. We run market share reports with companies like Forward Keys, and we've shown that we've really grown our market share, during this time period. So, the great news about our industry and our relationships is that while there was tons of frustration last year and so forth, and for all of us, and for me, those social media posts or, the private chats, which someone always winds up sending to me, those were like someone telling you your kid was ugly, right? So I hated seeing some of those comments about us and so forth. But I knew that some of them were justified in regards to pandemic or not, in that we weren't providing the services that we are. So, I sit here today and the one issue we're working through now is during travel, because that has really blown up across the industry. I don't think we're alone. It's nothing to be proud of to say the guy down the street's got a 4-hour hold time and you've only got a 2-hour hold time. But that's kind of the scenario that's the challenge we're working through right now. But outside of that, our normalized phone lines are providing very, very good service right now. We're really on the other side of the pandemic as it relates to that. And we're continuing to invest on further transformation through the remainder of the year and going into next year. So for us, I think you'll see a much more efficient and effective service level from us, number one. And then the other thing that's real important to me is I just want to, without sounding kind of sappy, I want to put the heart back in vacations. I want us to really be human and really try to look at ways we can solve customers' problems or do things out of the box, and and maybe not follow every rule to a T if it can really make a difference for folks. And the phrase I use internally with our team is, if that was your grandmother at a front desk in the Dominican Republic with a problem, would you do anything differently? And I'll take a leap of faith that you really care about your grandmother, but if you don't, interchange that with somebody else. But would you do something differently? And if you would, do that for our customer. And so it's really changing that. And obviously, when you become a really big company, one of the vulnerabilities is you get so kind of regimented in your customer care with rules and policies that it kind of takes out the human element of it. And we're in the people business. That's what we do. And so I think you'll continue to see steps by us to make a greater impact in that area as well. But I see what's great to see is, right now I just had a meeting with Jackie Marks, who runs our B2B business, and she's just talking about how much of an expansion we're experiencing right now and the number of ARCs that are booking us and new ARCs that are working with us and so forth. So, as frustrating as last year was, I feel completely confident we're behind the worst of it, and we're seeing our business continue to grow and so forth. So, as I said, we're probably about a week and a half of completely solving the during travel issue. We made some great improvements on that as well, but it is as you talked about, like you brought up Southwest and American. We've had individual weeks where we had 58,000 scheduled changes and 45,000 scheduled changes, and it's not as if you had 2,000 people in the parking lot to anticipate that work, And so, while most of it's automated, even that's a little bit of a misnomer in that you might have had a nonstop on Saturday morning, and now you have a double connection on Monday. And yeah, the computer told you you're handled, but you're really not. And so a lot of those have to be worked manually and so forth. So no, there's no excuses in this business. You have to provide great service and provide great value to advisors and clients. And that's what we'll always be driven to do. But the reality is, during this time period, there are some things being thrown at the industry that they were unable to be prepared for. And we're trying to work through those as effectively as possible.
I appreciate that. I really do. And trust me, if it was easy, anyone could do it. It's overused, but it's true. I have a personal question as my own self as a travel advisor. I've been doing this for 7 years, and I'm very proud of the work I do. And for 7 years, some of my vendor partners have allowed me to keep the same password for 7 years. However, when I go to the website to go ahead and do my business with the ALG, the Vax Vacations thing, every 90 days I have to change the freaking password. Can we do something about that and have it so it's not every 90 days, for goodness sakes? Is it possible?
Well, this is one where you and I are locked arms together, because I'm part of the company and I got a pretty big title, and I have to change my password every 90 days as well. So it is something that, our first and foremost priority is security and with regard to data and information. And so some of those steps may seem a little excessive, but as long as we stay out of the news and we're not, some of the fast becoming many companies that are having these data breaches and credit card information being stolen. And, even our company, if you look at our company, you mentioned some of the brands and you add on United Airlines Vacations and Southwest Vacations and so forth. We literally are getting millions of attacks on a daily basis, from hackers all around the world. And so for us, it's something that it is a little inconvenient, but the alternative is a lot more risky. And so I share in your pain, because I start running out of passwords and you're not allowed to use a similar one and so forth. But it's done with the utmost focus on security of the customer's data.
All right. Well, I'll accept that answer, even though anyways, it's okay. I get it. All right. Let's pivot somewhere else, away from the regular travel business, and talk about a passion that you and I both share, and that's golf. Mm-hmm. We both enjoy golfing, and I have seen pictures of you at some of the great golf courses around the world, and I'm quite frankly jealous that I'm not invited, but that's the way it goes. I'll get over
Tomorrow's always another day, Scott.
I know. I understand that. I get that. So, what is your favorite golfing vacation destination that you would recommend to people? Pick one domestically and one internationally.
Sure. So domestically, my favorite course, and I've been playing it for a really long time, is Pebble Beach, and the collection of courses they have right around that area, Spyglass and Spanish Bay and Monterey Peninsula Country Club, and also Cypress Point. So I think those have always been. I've got just so many great years of great experiences and fun there. That's my number one. And I try. Luckily, in the last 10 years, I go out there twice a year. But prior to that, for like the last, I don't know, 23 years, I go at least once a year as part of the Travel Weekly Leadership Forum. So that would be my favorite domestically for sure.
And what about international?
And now international, it really depends if it's there's great golf courses in Cabo. There's great courses in Dominican Republic. I'm probably a little partial to Scotland. If you're really going to go out there and you're trying to cross off a bucket list, I think the old course, I think Turnberry is a great course. And, there's those great courses in Ireland as well, Old Head and a whole bunch of other ones. So there's some great experiences there. And something you want to cross off your golf bucket list is to get to the old course or some of those other courses in Ireland or Scotland. And
now what's the one course that you haven't played yet that you really want to play?
Well, that would be Augusta in Georgia.
Right. So, we all want to do that.
Yeah. So I'm going to get there some point, Scott, because I know I'm going to try and figure out some way to get there and get on that course. I just got to make it a little bit more of a priority now that I'm getting a little older.
No, I understand that. Now, listen, I've been, we see it every April. We see the azaleas, and we go, yeah, let's go play. And I know if you're a media person, they select some media to play the Monday after the tournament ends with the same pin placements as Sunday. That to me would be like nirvana right there. Yeah. No question.
Well, don't give up on that dream. If your dreams aren't, they're not big enough. So.
Always have to dream to do something like that. And finally, before we let you go, in their prime, who do you want? Do you want Jack or Tiger?
Well, I think there's a broader body of work with Jack. But if you went to prime versus prime, no one's beating Tiger.
I believe that's probably true. In prime, because Tiger really did dominate. Jack dominated, but exactly in an entirely different way. And I still think the overall body of work, Jack is better.
I think it's hard to dispute that. And, a stat that's pretty amazing that most people don't know, Jack came in second place at a major 19 times.
I mention that all the time when everyone says Tiger's better.
19 runner-up. So, that body of work is Tiger's probably the closest that someone will ever come to breaking that. And but I think, like I said, peak versus peak, I think Tiger played a game of golf unlike any humans ever played before in his heyday.
There's no doubt. I believe that all to be true. Ray, listen, I really appreciate you being on board with us today on the Walters Wandering Travel Podcast. I thank you so much. Again, just a reminder for all my listeners and viewers out there, mention the podcast, mention the YouTube channel, $25 gift card if you book in July after you travel, $50 in future travel credit when you get back home. Again, Ray, how do we say your name?
Very easy, Snisky.
Snisky, I guess. There we go. You can take the boy out of the Bronx, but you can't take the Bronx out of the boy, I suppose, right?
There you go. That's right.
All right.
I appreciate the opportunity, Scott, and look forward to much continued success for you and your company.
I appreciate that, and I'll have you on again as travel trends continue to evolve, because we know that's one thing is always changing. Again, thanks everyone for watching or listening to the Walters Wandering Travel Podcast. We will